What if you went from 0 to 5 out-of-body experiences in just 6 weeks? Well, that's exactly what happened to Vlad, my next guest. And what makes his story so powerful isn't the experiences themselves. It's how meticulously he breaks them down step by step. In fact, the very night I spoke to him, I applied one of his nuggets and boom, I slipped straight into a lucid dream. But Vlad's journey goes far deeper, from a dark night of the soul to a profound spiritual awakening to flying above entire cities during his OBEs. His story is packed with the details most people never share. And once you hear them, you might realize just how close you already are to leaving your own body. Now, as always, please like, subscribe, share your story, a tip. Everything you do helps the channel. Enjoy. Vlad, thank you for coming on today. So your awakening journey started 9 years ago, and since then you've had what you described as a wonderful or a set of wonderful experiences via meditation, breath work, lucid dreaming, light language, and out of bodies. And we'll get to your out of body experiences in a bit, okay? Because I really want to dig deeper into that. But for everyone that's listening, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what prompted that awakening? And maybe describe what light language, I know what that is because I have a friend who's had a similar kind of experience of awakening recently, but maybe just dig into some of those words as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Um, it was quite unexpected actually that you asked me to be on your channel, but I thought why not? So yeah, so my awakening journey started about 9 years ago or 10 or so. And back then I started with basic meditation. That was like 30 seconds at a time because obviously I was so new to it. And eventually I increased the duration of the meditation practices. And eventually years later, like 3, 4 years later, I got into more advanced meditations. And those were the Joe Dispenza meditations. And I worked with those for a few years, actually, like 2, 3 years or so. And that was amazing. I needed that progression throughout the years. Yeah, around the same time, like around 2018, 19, I started with breath work and cold therapy, like the Wim Hof stuff. And yeah, so since then, it's been this progression of experiences and like it's been like a series of awakenings, you could say, you know. And you asked me about light language. That started happening for me around 2020, 2021-ish. It came out of nowhere. I had obviously no idea that people call it that, whatever people want to call it. And yeah, sure. So, for me and so for many others, it started with, you could say, like downloads of frequencies. And so as a result of that, I started making new moves with my body. Eventually, I got into dancing like months later. And also I started, speaking like in like totally new words. And it's like just like a few words at a time. And as I was doing these things, naturally I believe it was my Kundalini energy that got activated because I felt it throughout my body. I would make like a gentle move with my hands and I could feel the energy like, activating my body. And, when you have something like that, the mind stops. So there's nothing to question really, because it's purely an experience. And so it got progressively more, like stronger, basically, more potent with time. And, light language can be expressed in different ways, as I said, like through movements, through spoken words, through art, what else? Through symbols or text, if you want to call it that, and possibly more ways than that. And for the first 9 months of having that experience, as I said, I had no clue it was called that. I knew something big was happening, and not just with me, but throughout the world. And I would get the main message that I got was this is at a cosmic level. This is also my soul's uniqueness. Those were the main two messages that I felt. After about 9 months of having these experiences with these downloads and frequencies, I came across communities online and hundreds of people, thousands, were having these experiences. And my jaw hit the floor at that point. And it was only so I connected with those communities only after I let go of something from my old life, which was actually my job that I had, I had that job for like 7, 8 years at that point. And I was actually guided to do that because I asked to connect with my soul tribe. And the message that I got was, leave, you gotta leave your job because you're done with it. And about 3 weeks after that, after I resigned, I connected with these communities and like that was another, awakening event, you could say.
What were you doing? What was your previous career?
So at that time, I worked as a guitar teacher, actually. And so I was in London, where I lived for about 14 years in total.
Okay, okay. So you're quite artistic anyway. So you're no.
Yeah, 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 I am. Yeah. So, yeah, I've been playing the guitar for many years and I'm into like visual arts as well. So.
Okay. And so when you were getting these messages, these downloads, and I know exactly what you mean. When I was younger, I had sort of a experience just a couple of times with something kind of similar. And as I mentioned, a very good friend of mine, uh, I guess who would least expect to kind of be going through this, has been going through this journey, and it's completely transformed him and I guess the personality that he projected previously, being very logical, very rational. Then all of a sudden he's been going through this. What sort of, yeah, the people around you, for example, how did it impact them? And how did you relay this message to them?
The people around me, let's see. Well, it definitely impacted them in more than one way. I mean, in positive ways and in you could say negative ways, because when these shifts are happening, people go through, like a variety of experiences and you have the ups and the downs. So many people are going through. The people, I mean, the closest people around me at the time, they were just very few in number. Like I just had a few friends and, I didn't tell anyone for the first for the first 10 months or more. I was definitely connected with the communities online, you know. So there were definitely, people there. We did some sessions together and stuff like that, and we chatted back and forth. So it was obvious for me and for them, obviously, what was happening. Like this massive, you know, shift happening. And light language is one of the many experiences that you can have. Yeah, but so the people around me, my family, as in my parents, my cousins, they live here in Sweden and they were in Sweden at the times. We didn't meet actually for a few years because it was during the lockdowns and stuff like that. Yeah. But, and you know what, just one more thing I wanted to say to your question there. I made sure that I stayed within my bubble of energy as much as I could, so to protect myself, because the differences in these pockets of energy became so much more apparent, So I made sure not to blend in with the wrong people.
Yeah. So could you feel, so when you say that, when you were maybe, I don't know, occupying spaces where, the energy might be mixed, could you feel other people's energy? Were you kind of taking that in?
Yeah, oh my God, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I went to supermarket on the streets, absolutely become more sensitive.
Yeah. And actually just going back to the actual awakening, when you started with meditation, Was that prompted by anything specific, stress or just, curiosity?
It was curiosity, I would say. So around 2016, that's when I first started with meditation. Very basic, really, just close my eyes and focused on the breathing, simply to calm myself down and see what I could find, basically. So there was no stress involved there. I mean, yeah, sure, there was to some extent, but it wasn't anything like anything major like that. So not at that point.
I used to think that OBEs only happened via sleep, right? That was my ignorance on that topic. Did you ever have any via meditation or any of the disciplines that you mentioned?
Via meditation, I've had amazing experiences, but not that I went out of body fully, like I've done since December, you could say. But, because there are different degrees of out of body. And yeah, you can say that you detach from the physical body via meditation. You don't have to fully exit. It's still a detachment at some level, even if it's level 1 or whatever that may be. So yeah, that I've experienced. Again, it was a progression. Thank God, because you know,
Obviously, meditation, Kundalini, all of these disciplines you mentioned, you're using the Joe Dispenza's meditations, I think. Any specific ones that you can remember?
from the Dispenza ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went through all of the blessing of the energy centers.
Okay. Okay.
I love those. Also, the courageous heart. There's another one called that. This one that I just mentioned, I started using last year in like November, October, actually to prepare for the OBE.
Okay.
But
Okay.
there's been a few more other than that. I think all of them are amazing that I've tried. Yeah, so they're
Okay.
just a little bit different depending on the purpose.
Got it. So how did you go from all these disciplines and light language to OBEs? What was the connection? And yeah, tell us a bit about that journey.
Yeah, it's very interesting because even with those amazing positive experiences that lasted until February 2022, I was not compelled to have any OBs actually, and I know there was an underlying fear behind it. And actually, around 2021, up until then, I was so blissed out. Honestly, I just felt amazing. And I felt that I had made it, like when you find this state of being, really, that you've always looked for your whole life. And so I felt that if I'm gone tomorrow, I've made it, I was so grateful. But yeah, I was just not compelled to have any OBs at that point. And so
Were you
some
aware of them?
I was aware, yeah, through I actually tried some OBs like around 2017, 18 or so. There's a book by William Bullman, and I read through that, and I tried for like a month. I wasn't ready. So that was my attempt. And so my dark night of the soul started.
Can you explain what a dark night of the soul is?
Yeah, I mean it is part of the awakening journey, and it's basically an experience or a set of experiences that are very uncomfortable, they can be, you feel like you're gonna die, And so there was this traumatic event that I went through in March 2022, and that started my dark night of the soul. So after that period of time, okay, I kind of recuperated, it wasn't as traumatic, but I was a changed person. So the last 3 years or so for me, they've been challenging for sure. And I've had amazing experience as well with the OBEs, first and foremost. And yeah, I mean, I could say a few more things about Dark Night of the Soul. I don't know. Um, let's see
Are
what's
you open
most
to
rel
sharing? what the traumatic event was that led to it?
Yeah, I mean, I got the C virus, that thing that people might have heard of, and never thought I would get it. It happened. I was as healthy as I could. I was not afraid during that period of time of none of that. Still, it happened. Life happens, and I almost died from it. For about 4 or 5 weeks, I was a meat suit. I felt that a lot of my soul energy had left the body, even though I didn't have like an OBE in the true sense. And there was no mystical experience attached to that event either. And yeah, I was basically, to be honest, I was in hell for a few weeks like that, 4 or 5 weeks. And then after that, I gradually started to put myself together. I contacted my family members, friends, and some other people that helped me through that period of time. So I needed that connection, especially you need it, like especially in times like that. And it's interesting because when you meditate and have those amazing experiences, you can be on your own for a long time, or you might be connected. That's the best thing. But I was on my own in real life for a long time like that, even though I would connect with people, through the screen like that. And yeah, it became obvious that after that traumatic event that I had to connect with people more, basically, and share more of what I was going through and meet people where they're at and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. And so you went through this dark night of the soul, you recovered, and what was the connection with the OBEs? What?
So about a year ago, I decided to succeed with the OBEs, and I had been listening to Darius J Wright for about a year and a half at that point. I believed what he shared and I believed the testimonies. Okay, this is real, but I didn't believe that I could do it. So it was only about a year ago that, as I said, I decided to succeed with at least one OBE, even if it would take me a year to do that. And so I got back into shape. I went back to a healthier diet. I restarted my breath work, my meditation, because I fell off the wagon for some time there. And with the purpose of having the OBEs, at least one. And so I started working with that protocol in November last year. Okay. And I had my first 2 OBEs in December. So it went so much faster than I thought. Like in 1 month, that's how it started, basically.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about, the methods or protocol you used and tell us about that first journey. First time, what was it like? What did you see? How did it feel?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, first, like so many other experiences that are, first time you have them, like, you'll remember them, hopefully. And so, yeah, I went through the main stages of the protocol. Basically, I laid on my back for anything from 3 to 5 hours per night, focused on my breathing, make sure that my breathing was as shallow as could be, so that you have to shut the body down to fully exit, even if you exit for 10 seconds or whatever, a minute, 5. And so, yeah, I basically followed the protocol as best I could. I stayed connected with the community. I listened to Darius time and time and time again. And yeah, that very first time happened. I basically exited to my right, side, so lying on my back. And so, when you come out like that, you feel every cell in your soul body vibrating. It's very much like a Kundalini activation. And, you don't know what to expect. You listen to the testimonies and stuff like that. But it's like the experience is a thing in of itself. You just have to have it to know. So,
Did you go through sleep paralysis?
no, I rarely have that. And I'm grateful, because I was prepared to feel horrible, especially due to that sleep paralysis. since it's supposed to be stage 2 out of 3. And so, okay, I'll welcome it, whatever. But it never arrived. And so I went from stage 1, which is to shut my body down, to stage 3, to be out of the body. And many people have it like that, and other people go through the sleep paralysis. So yeah, and so I was out of my body. I went through the wall with my upper part of the body. I couldn't see a thing, but I felt everything. And I waved my arm like that, left, right, with the intention of grabbing someone's hand so that I could be pulled out and finally go, fully out through the wall. And so guess what? I did grab somebody's hand. It felt like a hand. I mean, I could have been something else, but yeah, it's definitely, like you feel the connection there. And so right when I was about to fully exit, I see this void, you could call it. I don't know if it's the void that people, talk about, but it was definitely, I perceived it like that. And just the thought of fear came up. What if I'm being sucked into that void and I'm not coming back? And, just that one thought made me come back in the body. And I was still in that state, that amazing state, like really high energy, these vibrations going on. I stood up from the bed. You're just so freaking energized after that. Like, oh my God. Yeah, and I was just so happy, like a kid on the best Christmas day of his life. you know. And that was the first one. It's very short, like a minute or something. Maybe even less. But mission accomplished. I want it out. Universe, let me out. Let me see what it's like. And that was my goal. And from there it got easier with the other ones.
And so how many have you had in total? Because we're talking about a short period of time in reality, right? So you're saying from December last year. Yeah. How many have you had in that time frame?
So my first 5 OBEs happened within a period of 6 weeks. Then I had a break about 6 or 7 months, just because life happens. I had to, I just had to prioritize other things. And I restarted with the protocol late July, early August. And in total, I've had about 8, 7, yes, 7, 8, you could say.
Okay. So wow, that many. So 5 within 6 weeks. That's phenomenal. What was that like? And how often were you trying during that period of time?
During those 6 weeks,
Yeah.
like 4 times a week, 4 or 5 times a week, for sure.
Okay. Can you take us through, the progression? And did you manage to fully get out of your room, building?
So I shared my first one. My second one happened like 5 days later. I came out straight. There was there's not a lot of vibrations. I went straight from laying on my back to standing upright in my room. Still dark, but I had more visibility this time. I could see I was in my room. I couldn't see my body. And so I commanded more light, just with a thought, like more light. And it happened. And then the second command was, I want to move left, right, forward. And I did. So basically, you don't take steps, or at least I didn't. Like you glide forward, kind of what do you call it when you're like a bit above the ground?
Like horror.
Yeah, you hover. Yeah, exactly. And so that happened. Oh, that's amazing. I was gaining a little bit of control, and I had made a second command, again more light, so that I could pass through the hallway because it was quite dark. It was very dark in front of me. And so I used the spoken words for that second command, but it didn't work. Like my jaw was stiff. And so I went in and out like that from the physical to the non-physical as I was saying the words, and even my physical jaw was moving. That was weird and cool. And then I got back in my body because I got a bit afraid, and probably because of that thing with that limitation with a command. And I was very close to my physical body, and so there is this magnetic pull from the physical. That's why it's a good idea to get away from it as much as you can so you can have a richer experience. That was my second one. Mission accomplished with that one. I wanted to command something. It was short. It was, again, like a minute or less. So at least I made, I had two intentions and they happened. So I was happy about it for sure. The third one happened about a week later or something, 10 days later. My goal was to fly, actually. So I went through the protocol, laid on my back for like 3 hours, nothing happened. Laid on my side, I fell asleep, and then I came out. It's been like the easier way for me to exit when I lay on my side. And, it can be like that for some people. Just varies from person to person. So yeah, I came out, I went straight through the wall, and I flew up as high as I could. And again, I couldn't see a lot.
So is this with commands?
Yeah, it was command. I had already worked on the intention throughout the week. My
Okay.
intention is to fly. It's good to have at least have one intention once you're out. Like, what do you want to do? I got that
Okay.
from Darius, obviously. So, I thought, okay, I'll do that.
And that intention, when you say good to have intention, I think you also said you had it throughout the week. Is it just something that you just relayed to yourself?
Yeah, I would meditate on it and I would
Okay.
keep it in my thoughts throughout the day, basically. Okay, what's my goal for the next one? I want to fly. Okay, let's go with that. See what happens. So yeah, as I said, I came out, when you come out, at least for me, it's like you gain an increased awareness and you definitely remember your goal. And so it can be very easy actually to experience it. Depends also how ready you are for that experience, how far you want to go. And so yeah, I went up, 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 to the point where I could see a light above me. I wanted to reach for it. Then I came back in my body. Actually, at that point, I felt again this pull from the physical, even though I was high up in the air. And yeah, and I returned. I was a bit frustrated. It's like, oh, shit, that was a short one. Nevertheless, it was an experience. I got to fly a little bit. So that was the third one.
Yeah. Quickly, just going back to something you said about, I think this is the first and second, no, the second one, when you commanded more light. Did you see where the light source was coming from? Was it just like,
Oh,
okay,
no. There was no light source. It just happened
brighter, okay.
yeah, a little bit brighter. Not like in broad daylight, but definitely there was a difference, no question about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then, so that's the first three you've taken us through. What's been the wildest experience? And how on the navigational side, have you progressively been getting better with that? How would you describe it?
Okay, so number 4 and number 5, plus another one that I had now in August, they've been the most amazing ones for me because I got to fly a lot and I was fully in control. So definitely these three have been the richest experiences. And I even got to interact with people. The way these three OBEs happened were through what people call lucid dreaming. So I'll explain. I went with the protocol as usual, but I fell asleep, so which was not my intention. Then this is number 4, so it'll be number 4. I woke up in a dream. Straight away, I went up in the air, realized I was in a dream, took control of myself. Okay, it's working. Yeah, I'm in charge. Then I remembered to look at my hands. And this is a trick you can do, or you can look at a certain object to remember even more, to become even more aware so that you can have a richer experience. Looked at my hands for like 3 seconds, and I had a second realization that I could exit from that lucid dream, to have a richer experience. So I went right through the wall, which was next to me, like a big wall. And on the other side, I flew above a city. So I was really high up above it. It was in broad daylight there. Okay, so there will be happen nighttime, of course, like all of them. But over there, it was like broad daylight. And so it was just so amazing. When you fly like that, whether you're fully out in the true out-of-body state or in a lucid dream, that's like the most amazing feeling for me, to fly and to be in control of it. And so, yeah, I flew up in the air, and there were these white buildings. It's definitely, I had never seen like that city before. I flew through some cloud formations. They seemed to have like some solidity to them. They were like more real than here, you could say. Yeah, and I got to see my hands and arms for the first time. Not the rest of my body, oddly, but like, yeah, it's like that sometimes. You get like different degrees of awareness, basically. And so I was flying like this, like Superman style. Okay. And I moved my hands and arms like that, like, shit, they're responding. Shit, this is real. They look quite similar to here, to physical reality, but they had a glow to them. And you hear this from other people as well. So that was that part of the OBE. I then got teleported to the ground without my intention. It just happened. I was in a small room, you could say. A guy walks out with a suitcase, was wearing a suit, he went through an opening leading to another room. And so I went through that opening as well. And that other room was it was like a public place. It was like type of a restaurant. I made some eye contact with the people there. Some things were sharper, other were blurry, you could say. And yeah, again, I was working with intention the whole time, right? So wanted to move forward, it happened, and the flying and all that. And so from that restaurant type of place, I got teleported back up in the air. I got to do another round of flying, which was amazing. Just a little bit shorter than the first one, but it's fine. And then I came back in my body. So that was the fourth one. And that's how it happened.
And when you said something about, I think once you looked at your hands, how did you make the leap from, you said something about exiting. So you kind of drew attention to your hands. How did you make the leap from lucid dream to OBE?
Okay, so just the day before, somebody in the community said that she looked at her hands and she became lucid in the dream and took charge. So I was like, okay, I'll use that like you would do. You pick up tips and advices from people. And so, yeah, I remembered to do exactly that.
Because I've had lucid dreams as well, and it's interesting because I draw parallels to some of the things you're saying in terms of like just being able to do whatever you want in the dream. I love it when I have a lucid dream. But I didn't realize that, like, that make the connection between those and an out of body experience. I think I've always just mixed those up.
Yeah, I with that one, I didn't intend for it. I wanted to exit like in the previous three. It just happened like that. And so again, we're talking about these levels of awareness and experience. Throughout that whole OBE, I was asleep, so I wasn't out to the same degree as with the previous three ones. But it was the richest experience for me at that point because it lasted. Because as I said, I got to fly a lot and I was in charge of it. And because my goals with that one actually were to have as much clarity as possible and to fly as much as possible. So again, I set those two goals prior to the experience. And, I got to say, it was amazing the way it happened.
Yeah.
So there is another way of exiting via lucid dreaming. Like you fall asleep, you wake up in a dream, you remember, then you wake up in your physical body, might have a sleep paralysis or not, and then you fully exit from there. And that's what Darius calls for protocol 3. And it just happened a little bit differently for me, but that's just the way That's the best way that I can describe my experience, you know.
Got it. Okay, so then you mentioned, so that was number 4, right? So I think 5, 6, and 8.
5, again, very similar to number 4. I had even more lucidity in this one. Again, it happened like, woke up in a lucid dream, got to fly a lot. This time I was in a city again, but I was close to ground level. I got to interact with people for the first time. I was in charge of the commands the whole time. That was amazing as well. And yeah, basically flew back and forth along like above an alley throughout a park. And there were people there. We made eye contact as I was flying. Got to the very end of that alley. There was like a type of market there. People were selling stuff. I landed. I interacted with them for a minute or two. And then I got back in the air. I flew the opposite direction to the very end, the opposite end of this alley. And then some guy pointed at a window. He didn't say anything. He just pointed at a window as if I could go through that. And it's like, yeah, I want to go through that. So again, this was, even if you call it a lucid dream, it was so real, and so amazing. That's why I'm sharing it. If he wasn't, if he wasn't that real, I wouldn't be talking about
So
it.
the physicality as well.
Good question. For me, it was like what I felt the most was the feeling of flying, the freedom. So when you hear me saying the feeling of flying is the most amazing, is the freedom and the liberation, Other senses, actually, I could hear people, I could see them, obviously, but like touching sensation, not much. So yeah, and so I flew through this window, which was kind of like a balcony or something like that. It was open. I landed in this living room of some family. We just sat there and chilled out. There was no words, exchanged or anything like that. It's just a vibe, like a really chill out vibe. And then I got out. I flew out through the window back to the outdoor area. And that was, I'm kind of, I'm shortening the experiences now because I can't go into every single detail. But
Okay.
so yeah, that was the 5th one. And as I said, the first time that I interacted with some people. Yeah. And it was, again, an intention that I had.
Okay. And yeah, so the most interesting one for you, was it that one or the previous one?
I would say both of them.
Both of those
I'd
two.
say all of them. Like
Yeah.
I don't regret a second for doing this work. Honestly,
No.
that's what I can say. They've just been different, unique in and of themselves, and there's been a progression. Thank God. It's got to be a progression. Like I don't want to come out like for the first time and see a freaking being next to my bed. Like, no.
Which was going to be a question. Have you seen anything? Well, obviously you've seen people. Have you seen any entities at all?
No, not at this stage.
Okay.
Uh, I my guess is that I've been in my dimensional space, as Darius calls it. So it's like your dimensional space is like your bubble of reality where a lot can happen. You can manifest and experience a lot there. And it's like the first place that you access when you come out, especially when you're just getting started. And then you can go beyond that in a more like shared reality and interact with beings and stuff like that. So those people that I interacted with, they could have been my own projections, or they could have been like a separate entities. I'm not quite sure. I would like to get more clarification on that myself, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the best that I can describe.
Okay. And you mentioned that you've recently restarted. What's your current intention? And yeah, what's your goal with all of this?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question. My next goal is to either access my soul records or to access outside of the construct. We'll see what will happen.
Explain what those are for anybody who doesn't know.
Okay, so soul records is basically, again, the way I understand it, because I haven't been there yet, at least not that I remember of, is the space or the dimension where your past lives or parallel lives, to be more correct, are recorded. And from what I've gathered, people can experience their own soul records in more than one way. You can either be there, okay, full in your soul body, and you either relive a past life or watch it on some kind of screen, or you can, say, meet a being and get information from that being. Then you might be in like a temporary dimension just for that one purpose, just to have access to some of your soul records. And there might be more than these ways, you know. So I want to have, you know, I would like to have the assurance that all is well on the other side. That's really what I'm looking for. Wherever that may happen in my soul records or wherever, I don't know. But that's what I'm actually looking for.
Okay.
Which is the same thing as remembering more of who I am, you know?
So sort of that subjective proof of all of these things. Okay. And are you doing this several times a week at the moment?
Yeah. So now since early July, yeah, I've been practicing almost every night. Yeah, I mean, my latest one was like a week ago or something. I could share something if you.
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
So, okay, so my intention, as I said, to access my soul records or outside of the construct. And I went through the process as usual and laid on my back for like 3 hours. Nothing happened. Switched to laying on the side. And you know, when you lay on the side, at least for me, I get this feeling of relaxation where I'm more likely to exit that way. And because I've had it before and I felt it like, okay, oh, I feel good. You know, it might happen now. And it did. So it was freaking strong this time. I don't know, maybe because it was the first one in a long time. Yeah, like the vibrations were really strong.
Okay.
You know, from this position, I came out. You move like in slow motion or like you're in space or something. And so I was out in my soul body and I faced at the floor for a couple of seconds. And then I got pulled through the wall and I traveled through a few layers of dimension, what I would call it. It looked like I was in an apartment. I saw some furnitures on the side and again, these layers like that, you know, and some of the objects were a bit stretched out. So I traveled slowly like that. I arrived at a window, wanted to go through the window. However, I got scared at that point and I returned to my body. So this time I was not in control. This just happened. Like I came out as I intended and this pool was there like from the start. And even before I fully came out, I went in and out a few times, like 3, 4 times like that, back and forth.
What do you
I
mean
heard,
in and out?
huh?
In and out of sleep and waking up or
No, actually in and out of the body. As
okay.
I was in that right state, you know, like in the, you know, be in between, you know, the dream or the sleep and being awake. And so, yeah, I would, you know, come in and out just with my head and shoulders a little bit. And I heard these like wind blowing in your ears, like. So I knew it was like, okay, I better get ready.
Okay. And that the mirror that you mentioned, was it because did you fear that it was a portal you were going through and you weren't sure what you were going to interact with or see?
It looked like a window,
Okay.
basically.
A
And I didn't
window
get past that because I felt just a little bit clear.
out of control.
because I was not in control this time. This was actually the only OBE where I was, yeah, when that happened, and just this pull was there.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
and
have
that
you
was
felt,
that. It was,
sorry, there's a bit of a delay. Oh, what were you just, how did you end?
yeah, that was my latest OBE. It was a very short
Okay.
one. I was frustrated as hell. Wanted to exit a second time, just like a few minutes later, but no, I didn't. I went to sleep after that. Fell back into sleep.
Okay. No, those are some interesting stories, and I think especially like for people who are in those early stages of trying to do the same, I think you've shared some real gems and real detail about the process, As you've been having these experiences in, the sort of these out of body experiences in dimensional spaces or other places, has anything translated into the real world? Have you brought anything back? Have you noticed anything in your day to day that's slightly different or anything?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, the willingness to remember more of who I am. That's one thing that I'm getting from these OBEs. Another thing is that I've been diving deeper into spiritual practices, especially in the last, let's say, 6 weeks or so. And I'm now part of a community where we do these practices together, basically manifestation practices. And yeah, I want to have like the willingness to have more of these OBEs to manifest here in the physical, of course. So these are the things that I've brought back, yeah, from having these OBEs.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. So yeah,
Overcoming the fear of death, because that's really the number one fear to to conquer in order to have an OBE, at least your first one, and then it gets easier from there. So it was really that one challenge that I had before I started with the protocol. And I also want to say it's actually after my dark night of the soul that I let go of my fear of death to enough extent to want to have the OBEs. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm, fully without fear of death, but definitely I've conquered it to some extent, and I'm super grateful for that. So that's another thing that I got from the OBEs.
no, thanks for sharing that. So we're almost at an hour. I've just got one last little set of questions I'd like to ask, really tips for anybody who's listening, and tips specifically on, or your number one tip, I should say, on initiating the vibrations, the exit, and navigation. So I think you've kind of shared some of that already, but yeah, maybe just quick fire.
What was the first one again?
The first one, initiating vibrations or initiating what would be your number one tip to initiate an OBE, really, the vibrational stage?
Right. Practice. Like keep doing the work time and time again. It's no different from learning a sport or an instrument. You have to go through the process until it gets easier, until you feel when you're close, right? Another thing to initiate that spark, to feel the vibrations and to know that you're coming out from the body. I mean, listen to testimonies. I've listened to so many testimonies, and they've been so inspiring. And people they sound so chilled out when they talk about them. It's like you don't have to be like some a guru or anything. Like you might be closer than you think to have your first OBE or second or third or whatever. Um,
And then
yeah,
the exit process, because I would get to vibrational stage, right? So I usually do it by waking myself up around 4 a.m., going back to sleep, listening to anything. It doesn't have to be binaural beats or anything, but just by even sometimes the intention setting that you said seems to be successful for me. And then I'll get the vibrations, And then I wait for them to subside and then try and come out. But sometimes, or I try and open my eyes and I wake up. So that exit, do you have any tips on how best to?
Okay, this is good because when people ask questions like that's when the right answers come. So this is amazing. I basically surrendered. This is another key thing that has helped me in general with these OBEs. I set the intention to the universe. If I'm meant to have these OBEs, then so be it. If I'm not meant to have them, fine. Okay, I'll focus on something else. So that's surrender to the outcome of the experience by one, keeping the intention there to exit, and two, let the greater power decide how it will happen, even if it's going to happen. Yeah.
And then I guess my final question was around navigation, which I think you kind of touched on quite thoroughly around, verbalizing or, mentally commanding.
Yeah, so the navigation, I would say the preparation, like throughout the day and throughout the week, helps with that a lot. Because you build up the intention and the energy around that experience. I would say that's the main thing that has helped me with the navigation because once I was out, okay, especially in those number 4, 5, and 6, it just happened naturally with that when I got to fly that much, and I don't know what else I can share there that really worked for me.
No, I think what you've shared is great because it's not something that I think many people even thought. When you said it earlier, I was like, oh, that's really that just intention built the setup almost like of how you're going to do it, what you're going to do, what your goal is. I think it's an important one that carries into most aspects of life, to be quite honest, right? It's like just setting that really clearly.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's really also the combination of these parts, these elements of the whole process. The way you breathe and the mantras you say, the intention, the practice. It's always like a combination of things like that. And you put one foot in front of the other. You collect new information, like I've shared here, like so many others are sharing. And as I said, people listening to this, you might be closer to an OBE than you think. So
Brilliant.
yeah.
Vlad, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all of your
Thank
knowledge,
you. I
wisdom,
really
everything
appreciate it.
up.
Thank you
Brilliant.
so much.
Thank you.
This has had a lot of fun. It's been great. Yeah.
Fab. Have a great day.
Okay. You too, Emma. Thank you so much.
So what did you think? What resonated and what bits do you want to know more about? Share your stories, have your say. Let me know what you think in the comments below.